Are we seriously negotiating with cannibals? Midshipman Rincaros shoved a hunk of protein paste into his mouth, letting the bland, gummy lump distract him from the absurdity of the mission briefing. Around him, the other cadets from the Galactic Academy's Deathworlder Corps looked equally unimpressed, though none dared to speak. None, that is, except for Cadet Jackson Thill, who was leaning back in his chair with a smirk. Run glared at him. Of course Jackson would have something to say. Cannibals, pirates, warlords, and idiots, Jackson continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, and did I mention they've been shooting each other for 10 years straight? Sounds like a fantastic use of our talents. Commander Arlend Drex, their instructor, wasn't having any of it. The grizzled veteran snapped his attention to Jackson, his dark eyes narrowing. If you're finished grandstanding, Cadet Thill, I'll remind you this is an order from Fleet Command. You don't have to like it. You just have to execute it. Jackson shrugged, clearly unbothered. Run could feel the tension rising in the room like an electric charge. The commander's voice dropped a notch, gaining a dangerous edge. And if you think this assignment is beneath you, then perhaps you'd like to go explain to Admiral Kell why you're too good to handle a diplomatic crisis. The smirk vanished from Jackson's face. Understood, sir. Run stifled a grin. It wasn't often someone managed to shut Jackson up. Still, the mission sounded insane. The Zephyr Cluster, a volatile region at the edge of charted space, had been engulfed in chaos for over a decade. Warring factions, fueled by grudges so ancient that even the scholars of the Galactic Academy couldn't unravel them, had turned the sector into a perpetual battlefield. And now Fleet Command expected them, a squad of cadets barely out of their training, to fix it. Ren's stomach churned as Commander Drex outlined the plan. The Deathworlder Corps had a reputation for solving problems no one else could handle. But this felt like tossing a handful of firecrackers into a reactor core and hoping for the best. The Zephyr warlords didn't negotiate, they conquered. Their fleets were cobbled together nightmares bristling with stolen tech, and their ground troops fought with a ferocity that even seasoned Marines struggled to match. But then again, Ren thought, wasn't that exactly why Deathworlders existed? The Corps had been established to turn the galaxy's most dangerous inhabitants, humans, into an elite force capable of operating in the harshest conditions imaginable. If anyone could pull off a miracle, it was them. Mission parameters are simple, Commander Drex said, his tone making it clear that failure wasn't an option. You'll insert into the Zephyr cluster aboard the AIS Vanguard, make contact with the faction's leadership, and broker a ceasefire. Intelligence suggests they've grown tired of constant warfare. Use that fatigue to your advantage. Ren raised his hand, ignoring the sweat beading on his palm. Sir, with respect, why us? Wouldn't Fleet's diplomatic corps be better suited for this? Commander Drex's lips twitched into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so cold. Because Fleet Command doesn't think negotiations will work. They're sending you because when diplomacy fails, you'll do whatever it takes to make them stop fighting. And you'll survive doing it. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Understood, sir, Ren said, his voice steady despite the nerves gnawing at his gut. Commander Drex nodded and turned back to the holo display. Good. Dismissed. Gear up and be ready to deploy in 20 minutes. As they filed out of the briefing room, Jackson fell into step beside Ren, his usual cockiness dampened. So, Ren, you got a plan for stopping an interstellar war? Because I was just going to wing it. Ren gave him a flat look. Maybe try not insulting anyone until after we land. Jackson snorted. Where's the fun in that? The AIS Vanguard roared into the Zephyr cluster, its engines humming with barely contained energy. The cadets gathered in the drop bay, checking weapons and armor. The standard-issue exosuits looked bulky, but they were custom-built to handle environments that would kill most life forms in minutes. Ren's helmet HUD lit up as the systems came online, feeding him data about atmospheric conditions, energy signatures, and most importantly, potential threats. "This place looks like a scrapyard exploded," Jackson muttered over the comms as the ship descended toward the cluster's largest planetoid. Wreckage from years of conflict littered the surface, casting jagged shadows across the barren landscape. Ren didn't respond, his attention fixed on the three figures waiting at the designated landing zone. The warlords, or at least their representatives. Two of them were heavily armed, their mismatched armor covered in scorch marks and bloodstains. The third, a towering figure with reptilian features, carried no visible weapons but radiated an air of menace. The vanguard touched down with a hiss of hydraulics, and the cadets stepped out into the oppressive heat. Commander Drex's voice crackled in their earpieces. Remember, they agreed to this meeting under strict conditions. No sudden moves. No unnecessary hostilities. The warlords watched their approach with suspicion. Ren's heart pounded as he stepped forward, flanked by Jackson and the others. The reptilian figure spoke first, its voice a guttural growl. "You're the humans they sent?" "Children," Jackson, predictably, couldn't resist. "Children who've survived places that would make your nightmare mazes look like vacation spots." Run shot him a warning glance before addressing the warlords. "We're here to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Fleet Command is willing to mediate and provide resources to help rebuild." The second warlord, a scarred humanoid with glowing cybernetic eyes, sneered. "Mediation? Rebuilding? Do you think words will fix what's been broken here?" Run took a steadying breath. "No. But continuing this war will only make things worse. We're not here to lecture you. We're here to offer a way out." The warlords exchanged looks, their postures guarded but not outright hostile. Ren knew this was the critical moment. Convincing them to listen was the first step. What came next would determine whether they walked away with a truce or a fresh reason to fight. The silence stretched, heavy with tension. Finally, the reptilian warlord spoke again. "Very well. Speak. But if you waste our time, you won't live to regret it." Run began, his voice steady, but his mind racing to keep the warlords engaged. "The truth is, none of you can win this war, not completely. The resources are running dry, your people are exhausted, and your fleets are held together with duct tape and prayers. A truce isn't just a compromise, it's survival." The reptilian warlord's slit-pupil eyes narrowed. "And what does your fleet command get out of this?" "Your kind never meddles without an angle." Jackson cut in before Run could stop him. "What we get is not having to deal with a war zone leaking chaos into nearby systems. Your mess is spilling over into trade routes and neutral territories. Frankly, we're tired of cleaning up after you." Run resisted the urge to smack Jackson in the helmet. The warlords didn't take the comment well. The cybernetic one stepped forward, his mechanical arm whirring as he clenched a metal fist. "You're bold, human. Boldness doesn't keep you breathing." "Enough." The reptilian's voice rumbled with authority, and the cyborg stopped, though his glare didn't fade. The towering figure turned its attention back to Run. "You speak as if you understand our plight, as if you've lived it. Tell me, human, how would you resolve this?" Run had expected the question, but it still hit like a freight train. There was no easy answer, no quick fix. But then again, quick fixes weren't why the Deathworlder Corps existed. He decided to lean into the truth. "I can't resolve this for you. None of us can. But I can offer a way to stop the bleeding and start rebuilding." The cadets' achievement in the Zephyr cluster was nothing short of extraordinary. Concord Station, once a forgotten relic of a bygone era, had become a symbol of hope and resilience. The fragile alliance among the warlords, though still fraught with mistrust, demonstrated that even the most entrenched animosities could be bridged when survival demanded it. Rin found himself reflecting on everything they had endured to reach this point: the grueling negotiations, the constant threat of violence, and the relentless pressure to deliver results. Yet, Amidst all the chaos, they had forged something lasting, something that might outlive the warlord's grudges. As the cadets settled into their roles as mediators, they began to see the gradual transformation of the cluster. Trade routes reopened, bringing much-needed resources to ravaged worlds. Neutral zones fostered cooperation, and tentative partnerships formed between factions that once sought to annihilate one another. The Deathworlders, initially sent as a last resort, had become an integral part of the solution. Run, Jackson, Omar, and the others took pride in their work, knowing that every small victory added to the stability of the region. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Disputes over resource distribution, violations of ceasefire agreements, and deep-seated mistrust threatened to unravel their efforts. Run and his team tackled each issue head-on, their determination unwavering. Commander Drex's lessons on resilience and adaptability had prepared them well, and they leaned on each other as they navigated the complex dynamics of the cluster. Jackson, ever the cynic, often lightened the mood with his sharp wit, while Omar's technical expertise proved invaluable in maintaining Concord Station's fragile infrastructure. Months turned into years, and the Zephyr cluster began to heal. The cadet success resonated throughout the galaxy, inspiring hope in other war-torn regions. Fleet Command took note of their accomplishments, recognizing the potential of the Deathworlder Corps as more than just a military unit. They were problem solvers, capable of achieving what diplomacy and brute force alone could not. Rin stood on Concord Station's observation deck, gazing out at the bustling hub of activity below. Traders, diplomats, and representatives from across the cluster moved through the station's corridors, their interactions a testament to the fragile peace they had built. Jackson joined him, as he often did, his usual smirk replaced with a rare expression of contentment. "You know," Jackson said, leaning against the railing, "I think we might have actually made a difference here." "Not bad for a bunch of children, huh?" Ron chuckled, his eyes never leaving the view. "Not bad at all." As the stars of the Zephyr cluster glittered beyond the observation deck, Ron allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The journey had been grueling, and the road ahead would be no less challenging, but for the first time, the galaxy seemed a little less chaotic, a little more hopeful. And that, he thought, was worth every sacrifice.